It's Real Madrid. It's Villarreal. It's happening on Saturday at 10:45 a.m. Again, these are a lot of these games require some early wake ups. I know we saw you wake up at about 6 a.m. this week for a Milan game. Just tell me where you're leaning here, because Villarreal right outside the top five as of right now. Real Madrid has their eyes on that number one spot right now. They only trail Barcelona. What are we feeling about this? Because we get Benzema back, and this is a team that can certainly score.
Yeah, this is really just what I loved is in contrast to the other teams we'll talk about later is they're
Mm-hmm.
fully healthy and they're playing a side that they normally play well against. Villarreal is a good squad. It's a respectable team, but at the same time, Real Madrid in this era with Ancelotti and Vinicius and Benzema have really stepped up against any opponent on any pitch. And you see it highlighted by some of this, but the odds don't actually reflect that. So we're getting plus 105 Real Madrid on the money line. Almost any time I see them like this, I love it. Again, how many times do I have to say the sucker type of bets? I'll take it. And then Benzema again, plus 120. We're talking about yeah, exactly. Plus 120 for Benzema, anytime goal scorer. We're talking about a penalty taker here. One of the best
Mm-hmm.
prolific strikers of the past 5 to 10 years in La Liga, let alone all time. And we're getting him at that number where we're going to have players like Vinicius creating as well. I think the important thing to note here is, again, if you like this type of narrative talk, Benzema is extremely motivated after not playing in the World Cup. And there were rumors that he was able to play in the World Cup final, but didn't. So what's the best way to take his way out on that? And that's basically to dominate La Liga again. And that's really what I'm looking at here. You could take Real Madrid and parlay it elsewhere. They're a great road team as they are at home as well. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I am just respecting them on so many levels with this. And again, Pepe Reina is still a starting goalkeeper in the year 2023 in a massive La Liga match. You know, good penalty saver, but I just love Real Madrid too much in this spot.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Rulli is going to Ajax, so a goalie change there for Villarreal. This is only the second game that Reina is going to be starting all season. So again, it's
At
2023.
his age too, that type of rust that
Yeah.
you have in that layover, they're prone to
Mhm.
mistakes, and it's not even to go at the older goalkeepers, but they're susceptible to those type of errors.
Yeah, you mentioned an interesting stat which kind of just solidified it for me. You talk about how good Real has been on the road away from home, and we see a lot of those big splits sometimes with these teams that kind of struggle. Not saying Real is a team that struggles, but they have picked up 21 points in 8 away fixtures this season. That's a max of 24 if you can't do the math. They have not lost away from home to Villarreal since 2015. So, I mean, my top bet for this is that Real Madrid money line. But I'm kind of seeing this the same way as you. I think Real might be able to score a couple. Both these teams are coming off wins during the week in the Copa del Rey. I like a couple other things too. I know you were kind of looking at that over at 1.5, 2.5. I beg your pardon. The over 1.5 is at minus 450. I think that's a little too low
Yeah.
for my liking. But if you like Real to score a couple of times, you can get the team over at minus 120. For a couple of things you mentioned, I mean, Pepe Reina is going to be starting in goal. That's certainly the thing to check off. And with just the momentum that Real is carrying in, and that Benzema, I would put some money on him to score this week. I kind of like Real to win and the team over of 1.5. Is that a
Yeah.
little too much for you?
I don't think it's too much. Essentially, again, when we break it down with betting options, you're basically saying Real Madrid 2-0, right? Or just a lot at the very minimum is kind of where it's going. So again, you love to play off of that. This is just like the whole process of it is okay. Then we look at some score lines of Real Madrid. You can get plus money value there if it's 2-0, 2-1. And again, the parlay with the over 1.5 for the game total was with Real Madrid money line. So if you can get something like that, again, that's still plus money. I know, like 2 legs, some people trying to stay off of that. Singular bets are always good as well. But again, I think the important thing to note is as well, over the course of these next few months, you will see teams that have greater depth, have bigger advantages when there's matches played midweek. Villarreal, like we'll talk about it, they're a good side, but when it comes to you're playing midweek and then Real Madrid's fielding an 11 that is their starting 11 that won the Champions League essentially outside of Chouameni, I mean, how are you going to argue against that? It's very difficult for me to go against that. And again, if Barca look kind of vulnerable, this is the opportunity in which they could strike hot because of the matchup that they have, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Barca game is also a really interesting one as well. And the, again, fixture kind of favors Real, though not by much, at least for this week. I want to ask you real quick, because obviously we're in uncharted territory here with the World Cup being in it's not normal spot. Have you seen that affect anything? Do you think it's going to, outside of just, Argentinian players or some French players kind of joining a little later? And I mean, at this point, most of them have joined.
Well, if we're talking about a couple of these leagues, it's not going to really impact Bundesliga because if you see Bundesliga starting a little bit later than everyone else, so
Mhm.
they've given themselves that cushion. They're always doing things different. First league to come back during the COVID strike, but I think you will see certain things. Players like that from Argentina, we saw PSG look horrendous. Lens again, great side. They're second in the league, but at the same time, it just really looked lackluster for them. But again, it depends on who was laid off at this point. Like semifinals for Croatians. We're talking about Luka Modric.
Mhm.
There's never been anything like him, so I don't think that man gets tired. I just like every
Yeah,
time
he
I
literally
think
does
he's
it.
supposed to, like he's going into the semifinals again, where they're playing multiple extra time games in his late 30s, and he's already in contract talks for the next season. But I think you will see different players. Average age median is definitely something that you have to look at as well when you kind of see these matches. But there's always two sides to the coin. Are they too inexperienced, or can they handle this? I think the futures market is probably the more interesting stuff that you could look
Mm.
at too, especially with top four bets that you could place as well. And again, we've seen it. I've seen it in Serie A. One win can sway everything completely in some of these
Mhm.
leagues. So you just have to keep your eye out for that.